How many times do we get into a conversation and we have really nice ideas coming up, or even we create a list of notes that we can use as a task list, or even things we have to go and use it to update a couple of documents in our organization. Transcripts can be our hidden gold. Alex Hormozy says in his book that he records every kind of conversation he has, and he can use it as a pool for content ideas to improve his services and customer experience he offers. And I totally agree with that. Transcripts can be the hidden gold into our organizations. Now, the question is, how can we use them effectively so we can get this value and move forward? That's why I've created the Brain Graph. Brain Graph is a vibe-coded tool, totally created from scratch, and it's responsible to receive our transcripts in TXT files and convert them into knowledge base. Knowledge base is a database where we don't store the document, but we actually store the learnings and the nice outputs from this conversation. And the cool thing with knowledge bases is that they store in graph databases, in technical terms, which actually let us create relationship between different objects. Those objects are the nodes. We can relate the idea with the person, the company, the suggestion with the problem. All those things can be the objects, we call them nodes, and the relationship between each other is what it can give us reasonable results. So let me show you how it can work. We just have to upload the transcript. I have already prepared a transcript on my PC right now. This is from the meetup conversation we had last time. It was about how can we get reasonable results from knowledge bases. It was a more technical conversation, but this is great. User can bring some notes here. This is from the meetup conversation about how can we get reasonable responses from knowledge bases. That's all. This input is used into the analysis process. And we just let the job to be done. The transcript is uploaded and it will take 10 to 12 minutes. It depends on the length. So we can come back, and after 10 minutes, we're gonna receive an email notification in our account saying that, okay, it is processed, and we can come here and get into a chat conversation. As soon as this time is running, it's the opportunity here to explain you what happens behind the scenes. So what happened is, there is the smart analysis process. This is how I call it. And what it does, it takes the transcript and with a specific given prompt, which is given from the admin, which in that case is me, specifies what is important for the user. That's why it's needed to get into a conversation for your onboarding. So we can specify what is important for your business, what it matters, so we can create it as a sample prompt for this analysis. So we upload the transcript, and using that prompt, we go and extract this information, those are important for you, from this analysis, so from this transcript. Then the next step is to validate the first output from this first round of analysis. So the model returns us back a list of nodes and edges, which are the objects and the relationships with each other. But for the second round, we have to run the validation round so we can enrich the data. And after that, we vectorize all of this information, which means we just convert the text into numbers, serial numbers, making the text readable and queryable for the machine. That's why we do that. And after that, automatically the system processes the data into the graph database. So that's why afterwards we can have the graph quality, we can get a summary, or we can get into the chat, which is the most valuable feature. We can always store our own personal API keys, so we can use our own Anthropic API key, which is responsible to analyze the text. We use the Open API key to create the embeddings, which means to vectorize the text. And here, at the moment, I have the integration with a Neo4j database, where we can just add the credentials from Neo4j, and all of this information will go right into our personal Neo4j and not into the global one, into the system. But the point of this is, how can we create a good example of building knowledge base? How can we just upload the transcript and get the value from this after the analysis? Something important here is that if you just upload one transcript, it's not that useful for you. I don't say useless, but it's not that useful. To understand the value of it, you have to upload at least 3 to 4 transcripts. So you can see how the information change during the time from your conversations. What is the new addition coming from the next transcript, and which are the updated information? For example, in the first conversation you have with your friends or with your clients, you deal to a specific feature or you deal to a specific service. But in the second one, he came back to you saying, look, we want to do XYZ updates. So this information is quite critical and it must be saved into this knowledge base. So when you get into the chat, you can have this information that initially we dealt with this service, but after the second conversation, client came back with XYZ updates. A bad example of building knowledge base is having a lot of nodes orphans, which means they are not related with edges, which is quite normal to be happened. But this is a great alarm for improving the prompt, the initial prompt. But at the level of testing it, the purpose is not to overthink and over-optimize the analysis. The process has to be focused on uploading your data and get into the conversation and experiment what is the knowledge base. If you're not familiar with that, that's a good point. Now, a very good example is to have nodes and edges, which are nodes which are not orphan, which is pretty good sign. And also, we don't have any duplicates. This is important because if we talk for the same thing in all of our conversations and we just upload the data into our graph database, what's going to happen is that we're going to create duplicates. So at this level, this is critical to not have these things, or at least we have to take into account how do we want to weight this information. The brain graph, what it does behind the scenes, before it processes the data into your graph database, it performs a query to validate that this information already exists or not. If it doesn't exist, it just creates this information. But if it already exists, what it does is it queries that, it queries all the related information, tries to understand what is this about, and uses the new upcoming information to enrich the existed information into your graph database. And that way we avoid creating duplicates. So let's get into the chat when the process is done with a magic click. And here we go. The analysis is completed. We got 31 nodes and 31 edges. Regarding the number, it doesn't really matter if it's high or low. It depends on the prompt we gave for the analysis, what we wanted to extract. And here is what we see. Here is the knowledge graph. All of those nodes are the concepts. And the every single bubble here is one node, and we see the relationship line explaining what is the relationship between those two things. And let's get into that. For example, here we see Dimitris, and all information mentioned from Dimitris into this conversation. He is the organizer, he lives in Thessaloniki in Greece, he has a business background, he works with Claude AI and Neo4j, and a long description here about this guy from what he described so far. So when I process the next transcript, I expect all of this information to be enriched with the new data, with the new updated information. Here is my current focus, my personal project and previous profession. Now, how the machine knew from previously how to extract this information, we explain it into the prompt that admin created for this user. So let's see what is this information. Problem, chunking, loss, context. This is a problem we talk about a lot in the previous meetup, which is about a methodology creating this analysis. Now, in Brain Graph, the analysis runs through the AI. We send on AI the transcript and we ask a couple of questions to be answered, and from this process we create the nodes and edges, the concepts and relationships, in other words. But there are many other techniques, like for example, we can have the raw text and split it into paragraphs, into sentences, or in specific length, and process it piece by piece into analysis. And what I said here into this conversation was that I'm not a big fan of this technique for many reasons. At least for the transcripts, this technique works pretty well in other cases, but this video is not about that thing. Now we see all of this thing, we can click into the relationship, so we understand that Dimitris explained this problem, and we know what this is. This node is about. This is a problem. Well, this is a response into a question, and we see all the context from that in here, right? And let's see here also the relationship. Here is the explanation, the relationship between the Dimitris node and the problem chunk, experienced. And if we read this information, we get to know what was about. We have the first option to run the quality check on the graph. And again, with one transcript, we don't get too much information. It would be better to upload 2, 3, 4, ideally transcripts to get more results. All right, it shows us more because of some other connections I've processed into the process, but we should see 31 and 31 because this is not the first one, and that matters. The most critical one is that we don't have orphan nodes. This is good point. We don't have to improve at this level of the prompt. Orphan nodes are a sign that something has to be improved even during the testing, but it's quite easy. We can delete the first input and we can re-import it so easily. We can click that to create us a summary for what information do we have into this conversation so far. And if we process multiple transcripts, the summary will include all of information from all the transcripts. But let's get into the conversation, because here is the nice thing. These are conversations from previously. All right. What is the main topic in this conversation? Now, if I had a different transcript processed or multiple ones, I would say which are the topics already discussed. And now I expect to come back with the response. why it takes so much time? It takes that much time because of the mechanics behind this question and answer process. This chat, how it works, it receives the question from the user, like I process it right now. It converts it to a vector data by embedding it. And then from this embedding, it tries to find the right resources to give us back the results. And here we see all the response generated. The system behind the scenes, what it does, it performs multiple queries into our brain database, the knowledge base, to find the right and the most closest information that have to be used to give us back the response. Now, the final response is structured from Claude. And this is what I use it behind the scenes to generate the context as a response. As noted in the transcription, it's pretty good. That was it. We can like or unlike the response here. I like it, it's good. What is nice here to see is the details, how this information, this response is generated. Claude returns us back the following information. It returns back the confidence, how confident is AI to give us this response from the found information into the database. Because I know here the statistics, how it works, and this number, as soon as we are above the 50%, we are pretty good. This is nice, good, and confident. This is not the statistical confidence of an AI model, the classic one. It's a different calculation that runs behind. And we have the semantic match score, which means how close into our question we found other information into our knowledge base, because we calculate the distance of our question and the existed information in terms of similarity. And here the model explains us what it found. He found 9 loosely related memories, 67 average, 64% average match, including 9 responses, 7 persons, 7 suggestions. Here is the processing step, what it used, how it used this information to give us back the result. And so we know how exactly the machine thought about after finding the information to give us back the result. So this is it. I'm very glad for you guys. If you wanna use it, just let me know. We can have the onboarding process. This is totally free tool. You can get into that, process your transcripts, and see how valuable can it be having a knowledge base in your own system. And of course, don't forget that you can always store here your graph database credentials, so this information will not be stored into this brain in this database, but it will be stored in your own one, so we can go from there and start building improvements. Thanks for watching.